Hi, all. This is Jan of the Jan Files. Remember to subscribe if you haven't done that. Today, I'm going to once again talk about Trump and Epstein and a couple of other men, but one by the name of John Casablancas and Jean-Luc Brunel. We all know that Trump and Epstein met around 1985. They were traveling in the same social circles, both in New York, and eventually when Trump bought Mar-a-Lago in 19, I think it was 86, he was in Palm Beach, where Jeffrey Epstein also had a house. So they were in each other's orbit for many, 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 many years. Okay. Supposedly they broke up in around 2007. Whatever the truth about that is, which I don't think we know exactly what happened. But anyway, so one of the things that was happening to both Epstein and Trump was that they both became very interested in the modeling world. And they had connections to the modeling world, especially Jeffrey Epstein. So what happened was Jean Casablancas, who ran the elite modeling agency here in New York, well, here in New York, in New York City, actually was the one who created the supermodel. The idea of these unbelievably gorgeous women who were the best of the best of the best. So we're talking about Cindy Crawford, you're talking about uh, Naomi Campbell, Heidi Klum, Gisele Bundchen, etc. Those were the supermodels. This was the 80s, and this one all hit the fan, right? This was a big deal. Now, Casablancas had actually come from Paris, where he had his first agency. And we also knew a man by the name of Jean-Luc Brunel. Brunel and another man by the name of Claude Haddad ran Karen Models, and then that was Karin. Okay. And Casablancas met them because he was in Paris, they were in Paris. In 1988, 60 Minutes did an expose called American Girls in Paris, and it was all about the modeling industry and what was happening to very young women of 14, 15, 16 years of age. They were being sent there to pursue their dream by their parents. They actually stayed in apartments that were given to them, or they still had to pay, by Karen Models and Jean-Luc Brunel. These women, young women, described in the expose being required to perform sexual services in order to get work. They were raped, they were drugged, they were given to clients, and they couldn't make money unless they did whatever they were told. This expose, again, was 60 Minutes. It was in 1988. What was the result of that investigation? The only thing that happened was a major other modeling firm called Eileen Ford Models, refused to work with them. That was it. No charges were filed. Nothing happened to these men. They continued on until 1999. In 1999, the BBC did their own expose. And based on that, they were banned from Karen Models. Jean-Luc Brunel came over to New York. Okay, and that is where he set up another modeling agency. The first one was called Next Management, and then he followed that up with another company called MC2. Now, MC2 was eventually funded by Jeffrey Epstein. So pay attention here. Let's drill down a little bit, and I know it could be a little confusing. But I really wanted to be able to say this in my own words. I had written it out and was like, no, I really want you to understand this scene of the 80s, the scene of the 1980s in terms of the modeling world. This is Studio 54 time. This is cocaine time. This is when partying was, it in itself was everything in New York City and in Paris and other places around the world. So Jean-Luc Brunel escaped, as I'm going to say, Paris and came to New York. John Casablancas actually introduced him, of the elite agency, right? The guy who created all the supermodels, to Jeffrey Epstein. So get the connection. Here we have John Casablancas, Jean-Luc Brunel, who already everybody knows is a rapist, okay, and abuses young girls, and Jeffrey Epstein. So that happened, and they connected those dots, okay? Trump, in 1991, used the Palace Hotel to hold what they called the Elite Look of the Year, which was a contest to find the newest supermodel. And Trump held that in the plaza, along with, of course, John Casablancas. That night, actually, there was also a party, a more informal party on this, the boats that go around the city. For those of you who don't know, there are boats that go around the city, tourist boats, called the Spirit of New York. You can also rent them for parties. There was a party after that with 14, 15, 16 years old, and men, mostly men, who are obviously more than twice, probably 3 or 4 times their age. And these girls were asked to dance for them. Now, they're supposed to be contestants in a modeling show, or whatever you want to call it. And this, again, we're just talking about what was going on. Why were there no chaperones? And there weren't chaperones. Why were these young women, 14, 15, 16 years old, being allowed to be in a place where alcohol was there, where there was no real, anybody watching them, where they were ogled and pressured by men to perform? Okay, so yes, Donald Trump hosted this event, not the Circle Line, but hosted the event and sat with Casablancas to judge who was going to get the look of the year. Okay? Now, Trump also became so enamored of contests that he bought the Miss Universe pageant. And he also started his own modeling agency called Trump Management Models, or Modeling, whatever. So TMM. Now, let's just focus on something. Here you have Jean-Luc Brunel, who was known. Nothing happened in the modeling agencies during those days that wasn't known by everybody, okay? It was a very small, incestuous environment where young girls were at the mercy of men. And it was a horrible, horrible time. And I can't say I know what happens now. All I can tell you, I also had a very dear friend at that point who was a top model. She wasn't a supermodel, but very close. And so I don't have any knowledge about Trump or Epstein or anything like that, but the modeling world was really awful. And it put these young kids, these young girls and boys, but mostly young girls, in these positions where they were taking off clothes, where they're being pressured to have sex, being pressured to do all kinds of things. They were nowhere near mature enough to be able to handle any of this. And so they became victims. Now, this time of the 80s and 90s um, this kind of stuff was rampant. And you can see just by the fact that no charges were brought against Jean-Luc Brunel until 2020. Think about that. The first thing was 1988, the second was 1999. So all this was going on. Trump would have known, okay? In my opinion, Trump would have known about all of these stories. Like I said, it's a very incestuous industry. He would have known what happened to young girls. And he would have also been easily, uh, clearly part of this whole scenario because of his pageants, his pageant, Miss Universe. Now, there are lots of accusations against Trump, and I'm going to go through a list now. But also there was another book called All the President's Women, where they documented another 43 women. What I'm going to run down is 20, about 20 women who have accused Trump, starting with 1979 throughout the entire time of his fascination with the world of models, with the world of pageants, which gives him access to women, beautiful women. As we all know, he loves beautiful women, and he likes them young. And this, again, that's a quote. And you can also go back to the days when he was on Howard Stern and hear him talk about being able to walk into the pageant and the dressing room area when women were naked, where young girls were naked. So I'm now going to go back and we're going to go through the list of women. But understand, this is what he was in. Like, I'm not saying he, participated in anything with Jean-Luc Brunel. There are no pictures with him. There's no pictures with him in Casablancas. We do know that he hosted the elite contest for Look of the Year with Casablancas at when it was Trump Plaza. So there's all these connections, all these people that were disgusting rapists and sexual abusers and drugging young girls. This was all around Trump, okay? Especially then when he created his modeling agency for Northern European women. So let me not too quickly, but quickly go through the list of his victims, which started in 1979. And again, I just want to make clear that everything I'm talking about and the context of it, I've done my best to get the facts. So if something is wrong, and then somebody should contact me and tell me so. This is my opinion of what I've read, and I would just want to acknowledge that now. This is my opinion of the facts I've gathered and what I think it shows. So let's go back to 1979. Jessica Leeds claims Trump groped her on a flight, describing him like an octopus with his hands on her breasts, upper skirt. Now that accusation wasn't shared until 2016. And why was it shared? Because a Hollywood Access tape had come out where he chortled about grabbing women's pussies and being able to do whatever he wants because he's a celebrity, including kiss women without their permission. So he admitted to all of this, by the way. And as far as I'm concerned, admitting to grabbing women by their pussy and kissing them without their permission is sexual abuse. Okay? Now, so that was 1979. 1980s, Nakina Carr alleges Trump groped her at fashion shows. In 1989, Trump's ex-wife accused him in a divorce deposition of raping her. She then recanted that later, just so you know, but also know that she had to sign an NDA in order to get her divorce finalized and to get her money. In 1990s, Kristen Anderson alleges nightclub groping. In 1992 through 1993, Jill Harth alleges attempted assault at Mar-a-Lago and settled in 1997 with him. In 1993, Stacey Williams alleges Epstein facilitated groping at Trump Tower. In 1994, Jane Doe alleges Trump raped her at Epstein's house in Manhattan. She later filed a suit in 2016, which was eventually withdrawn because she got death threats. In 1995, Maria Farmer alleges Trump hovered over her at Epstein's office and grabbed her. In 1995 and 1996, E. Jean Carroll accused him of raping her in Bergdorf Goodman. He was found that he was liable for that, for raping her. He was found liable for raping her. Okay? In 1997, Miss Teen USA contestants included Mariah Bellotto alleged dressing room intrusion. In other words, he, between this particular contest and Miss Universe, where other women have said the same thing, they all alleged that he walked in on them while they were naked. In 1997 and 1998, Amy Doris, Karina Virginia alleged groping at the U.S. Open. In 1990s, there was a book published, it actually had been published later, but it describes other incidents in this book called All the President's Women. It describes 43 other allegations. Now, I have not read the book. I don't know what material they had in terms of backing up these allegations from unnamed sources, but they suggest they cited 43 more women were abused by Donald Trump. Now, when Trump started his modeling agency, they also worked with a photographer by the name of Terry Richardson. I'm sure they worked with other photographers, but this was one of them. And despite complaints by models that he was sexually abusing them, so, he would drug them, abuse them, require them to perform sex acts, intimidate them. And it wasn't just girls, actually, it was also men or boys of very young ages who were put in this position. Richardson never faced criminal charges. There have been lots of lawsuits. There have been lots of settlements. But from what I read, my opinion is that he was a monster. And what was the Trump Modeling Management's response? They dismissed it, said he was a famous photographer and basically deal with it. So, friends, I don't have any intention of letting this go. I will also be talking about other things, but I'm not, because the victims deserve better. Girls deserve better. Women deserve better. The fact is that this kind of behavior still happens now. I don't know about what goes on in the modeling agency, but putting young girls in places they shouldn't be, and in places where they're expected to have a level of maturity they don't have, subjecting them to abuse by older men it's not over. But I'll tell you what, we need to finally take a stand and say no more of this. And we're not, because our concerns right now seem to be more about Trump and the men who committed these, which they should be on those. But the fact is that the victims' voices are not being paid attention to. Why have no victims been subpoenaed by the Congress? Why? Why is Ghislaine Maxwell now in a minimum security prison with supposedly the ability to go outside and work? Why is a sexual predator, pedophile, Ghislaine Maxwell, in a minimum security prison? You know, we need to ask these questions and keep asking them. This man, this orange blob of human being, has abused women. There's no doubt about that. He has admitted to it. How bad? We don't know yet. But I'm telling you what, I'm going to believe the women. I want the victims to come forward. I want the hard evidence, which there are millions of documents. There are tapes, there are CDs, there are photographs. There's all kinds of evidence that has been collected, both in Jeffrey Epstein's first trial in Florida and Ghislaine Maxwell's trial that just took place in 2021. Now, just an interesting fact, not only did Jeffrey Epstein supposedly kill himself, Jean-Luc Brunel, the predator who was shown up in 60 Minutes, American Girls in Paris expose, also committed suicide when after he was arrested in Paris in 2020. He committed suicide in 2022. I find a lot of this fascinating. I see all kinds of ties here. I can see all kinds of ties in an environment where this just manifested, this disgusting treatment of young girls, their bodies not belonging to themselves, and the intimidation that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein did to keep them in their lair, some for years. This needs to continuously be talked about. You need to make sure that you are fulfilling your obligation as somebody who cares about young girls, whether you're a man or a woman, and continue to talk about this. Continue to talk about the victims. Anything less makes you complicit. Thank you.